Hi, this is Rich from Wormico. Feeding your compost worms can be an enjoyable and rewarding experience. However, it's important to get the right balance, as certain issues like overfeeding could be a real problem. In this video, we'll cover 5 essential feeding tips so your worms stay healthy and productive. Let's start with what to feed. Worms thrive on a balanced mix of greens and browns. Greens, which are referred to as nitrogens, consist of food scraps like fruit and veggie peels, tea leaves, and coffee grounds. Browns, which are referred to as carbons, consist of dry materials like cardboard, paper, straw, and dry leaves. The ideal carbon to nitrogen ratio, or C to N ratio, is around 30 to 1, but that can sound complicated. A simpler way to put it would be for every 1 handful of food scraps, add around 2 handfuls of shredded cardboard. The C to N ratio matters because microbes, which break down the food for worms, need a balance of carbon and nitrogen. A good balance keeps your bin odor-free, stable, and an ideal environment for raising worms. Now, the most commonly asked question: how much should you feed your worms? In perfect conditions, a compost worm can eat up to its own body weight in food per day. That means 500 grams of worms could theoretically eat 500 grams of food per day. But in reality, they often eat less depending on temperature, moisture, and food type. So when first starting out, it's best to feed around a quarter of their weight in food per week. Let's assume that 1,000 worms weigh about 500 grams. So for 1,000 worms, start by feeding around 125 grams of food scraps per week. Then gradually increase the volume of food as the bin becomes more active. It's important to note that overfeeding is the most common mistake when first starting out. Feeding too much will leave excess food where it can rot, attract pests, and create bad smells. So if in doubt, it's better to feed less, which will allow your worm bin to have the best chance of success. So how often should you feed? When first starting out, feeding once a week is a safe starting point, and a good rule to follow is to wait until most of the food from the previous feeding has been consumed before adding more food. Feeding your worms often is tempting, but remember, this can result in overfeeding, which we now know can cause a lot of problems for the bin and the worms. And if you're going away for a while, then there's no need to worry. As long as the bin stays moist and cool, your worms can survive for weeks without food. Just before leaving, bulk up with moist browns and some slow to break down food scraps, and your worms won't even know you've gone away. Another question often asked is, which tray do I use to feed my worms? One common method is to feed in the top tray, also known as a working tray. Compost worms are surface dwellers, so feeding them in the top tray makes sense as it gives them easy access to the food that's buried just under the surface. Over time, the working tray will start to fill up with worms, food, and castings. When this occurs, add a new tray on top, and this will now become the new working tray. The worms will gradually migrate upwards and start to process the food in this new tray. Finally, how do you feed your worms? Instead of placing food on the surface, a better way is to bury the food. Bury food in 1/4 or 2 opposite quarters of the bin for best results. Burying food in sections will allow worms to move towards it when ready to consume or away from it if conditions are not ideal. Burying food also prevents insects getting easy access, and when combined with bedding material, won't have any smell. Also, if you've got very damp food scraps, place a layer of dry shredded cardboard first, followed by the scraps. You'll find that the cardboard soaks up the excess liquid and helps balance moisture over time. Okay, so that's feeding done. With a bit of background knowledge and some trial and error, you'll be throwing in carbons and nitrogens like a pro without even thinking about it. There's some oddly satisfying feeling of adding in food scraps and cardboard and seeing it disappear over time, but that's my opinion. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you would like to see more videos in this series, then please like and subscribe. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you in the next video.